Alrighty, it's time to talk about archetypes for the ally aspect leadership. Hello and welcome to Nelson All Over Cards. My name's Nelson and today we're talking about the blue aspects and 5 different archetypes that you can run in Marvel Champions for the leadership aspect. I've already done a Justice archetype video. If you want to see that, you can click, I think right here, maybe here, or the link is going to be down below in the description to see the Justice, and then I will be doing the following 2 aspects, as well as following up with a deck building episode or a deck building video that you can see in the future if you subscribe to the channel. But that's in the future. Today we're here to talk about leadership. Leadership is the big blue aspect, right? It's considered to be probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest aspect in Marvel Champions because of the flexibility that it provides. In this video, we're going to be talking about 5 different leadership archetypes which you can run. We're going to be talking about cards that go into those archetypes and some of the heroes that are best suited for that specific archetype. And I'm going to put timestamps, so if you want to come back or if you want to jump to one of these in particular, please do so. Of the 5, the first up we have, I'm calling the Regroup, Recur, Recycle archetype. So this is kind of the ally recursion archetype, which is its more commonly known name, but I like the Regroup, Recur, Recycle. This is all about getting allies back onto the table in order to trigger different effects, manage the board state, and or protect your hero. So some of the key cards in this archetype are going to be ones that allow you to get your allies back into play after they have left play or from outside of your hand. So cards like Make the Call, where you're able to pay the printed cost of an ally in your discard pile and bring them back to the table. Or cards like Rapid Response, when an ally is defeated either by a attack or consequential damage, you can trigger Rapid Response to bring that ally back into play with a damage. Or like Regroup. Regroup's a support that allows you for the entirety of the round, anytime a ally is defeated by an enemy attack, you get to pull it back into your hand. This is a really good one for multiplayer games. Love Regroup in multiplayer. But each one of these cards helps out in a different way. Now let's talk about some of the allies that you want to target with this. You want to target allies that have when entering play abilities, or like with Rapid Response, some of the higher cost or bigger allies that you can get at a discount. So cards like Nick or Professor X, cards that allow you to draw cards or confuse an enemy, ready an X-Men ally, all of these things, these really strong powers. Nick and Professor X are great. If you recur Maria Hill, it's excellent, especially in multiplayer because everyone's getting to draw a card. So every time you play Make the Call, you get to pull Maria out. Everyone gets to draw a card, phenomenal in multiplayer. Or the higher cost allies like Captain Marvel or Falcon or Beast. Any of these allies are going to be excellent targets for the Regroup, Recur, Recycle archetype. This archetype may be the most agnostic to hero on this list because this is a very, very strong strategy for pretty much any hero in the game. But I do have 3 here that can tweak it a little bit, especially with some of their signature allies like Gamora. Gamora allows you to go grab Nebula, which triggers her when entering play ability, allowing you to go grab different events, setting you up for exactly what you need that turn. So Gamora has a lot of cards that trigger bonus effects. If you've played a attack or a thwart card, you can go grab any of those cards to set up your combos that you want for Gamora. Nebula is a great target for a Regroup, Recur, Recycle with Nebula. And then also you can always just throw more of those allies in there. The next hero up is Vision. And Vision is excellent to recur Vivian to throw down some massive damage or thwart potential. Based on the stance Vision is in, Vivian gets a bonus to either her thwart or her attack. Vivian's also a very cheap ally, so is Nebula, but Vivian's also a very cheap ally, and so bringing her back with Make the Call in order to swing for 3 damage for 2 cost is very, very good. Also, 616 Hickory Branch Lane allows you to lean into the strategy more, allowing you to get allies into play from your deck to kind of start this whole recursion ability. And finally, we have Wolverine, which kind of similar to Vision, to just spam Jubilee for some major damage. So every time Jubilee enters play, you choose an enemy, you get +2, and Wolverine gets +2 attack to that enemy. And so if you're able to recur her twice in a round, there are ways to do that. I'm not necessarily going to go into all of that right now. That does stack. So if you are able to bring Jubilee in, kill her off, bring her back in, you now have +4 attack to that intended target if you choose the same target. So Wolverine is all about damage, and Jubilee and Wolverine love this Regroup, Recur, Recycle ability. Our second archetype that we're going to talk about today is what I'm calling the team player, which is normally called like the ally swarm archetype. This is where you're going to be getting a lot of allies on the table and then use them as resources. So you're not necessarily killing off your allies. You want to flood the table with allies and then use cards with like strength in numbers, so you can exhaust any number of allies and draw that many cards. Or like band together, where that card then becomes 1 wild resource for every ally up to 3 that you have. And so once you're able to get them onto the table, then you have a lot that you can do. This is probably one of the strongest archetypes in the entire game, just because of mainly strength in numbers. Strength in numbers is a dumb card. It's very, very good. Some other cards that help support this strategy are like the Triskelion to up that ally slot. So typically you're limited to 3 allies. The Triskelion ups that to 4. So now your strength in numbers is drawing 4 cards instead of 3. Or if you're running like a lot of Avenger allies, you can run Avenger's Tower, and then you can also run Stinger. So you can actually get up to 6 allies on the table with the Avenger's Tower, Triskelion, and Stinger, because Stinger does not count towards your ally limit. Now your strength in numbers are drawing you 6 cards, and I mean, you just win at that point. And then Guardians have like Nowhere, which increases their ally slot. X-Men have Utopia. And so there's ways to get over that 3 ally limit, which is very, very crucial for this strategy. Now, the heroes that work really well here are those who either need a lot of money, they have like a high cost curve in their deck, and so this allows you to get cheap allies out onto the table, or allies out onto the table, and then draw a lot of cards or use those band together to help pay for some of those high cost cards in their kit. Or this strategy works really well for characters that can get allies out there very quickly. So first up, heroes like She-Hulk, who can now go and pay for her big cards like Gamma Slam, and then you can make sure you're kind of drawing into it at the right time. So Gamma Slam deals damage equal to the damage you have taken or sustained. So you take a lot of damage, and then you can use strength in numbers to bring and pull 6 cards, because she's an Avenger. If you have the 6 allies out there, you can play multiple Gamma Slams. Like, now you're looking at a lot of damage potential, and since that is a 4-cost card, typically you're having a tough time paying for it, especially with her 4 hand size. So if you're able to draw 6 cards, you're able to draw into those Gamma Slams, you're able to pay for them. She-Hulk is a great contender for the team player aspect. Up next, I'm going to talk about Nebula. Nebula is great because with the card draw, she can get a lot of techniques and then potentially trigger all of them with like her lethal intent card. So if you have multiple techniques onto the table, those trigger at the start of her turn. If you're able to play a lot of those, strength in numbers to draw a lot of cards, if you can get like 3 of them out in a turn, then band together, triggers 3 of those cards. Now, that is pretty game changing. Those techniques are very strong. And so if you're able to get multiple activations out of them by drawing a lot of cards or paying for them, then Nebula is going to be very, very powerful. And then finally, we have Captain America. He had to make it into this video somewhere, and I chose to put him here because of his Living Legend ability. He's able to get those allies out very quickly, very cheaply, be able to flood the field, and then just strengthen numbers his way to victory. This works so well in solo play. It works super well in multiplayer play. One of my favorite things, and something that I really want to do, is play a shield toss with just a handful of cards and just dump and clear every minion on the table. I just feel like that would be just incredibly fun. But Cap is really, really good with pretty much any of these strategies, but I did throw him here because he can get that ball rolling so very quickly. Our third archetype that we're talking about today is the Voltron build. This is where you're basically making your allies stronger than your hero and letting them do all the fighting. The way that you do this is there are a lot of upgrades that can only be attached to allies, and a lot of those upgrades are trait locked to specific types of allies. So on the screen now you see some of the Avenger cards. I'm not going to necessarily go into every single one of them. Again, you can use this as a resource. And then now I'm going to show some of the Guardian upgrades. So a lot of these cards are really good with the Guardian cards. We'll talk a little bit more in specifics here in a second, but I wanted to kind of throw these out there before we dive into some of the other cards that can support any trait, and those are like Reinforced Suit and Sidearm. These are cards that are agnostic to trait, whereas some of the other ones are trait locked, but Reinforced Suit allows you to keep that Voltron ally out there a lot longer. Sidearm gives you some extra attack and also helps prevent that retaliate from triggering. So these are pretty much always going to be, at least I always run them in a Voltron deck just so I can have that ability to keep them alive. And then the other cards that you want to lean into for this strategy are ones that get multiple activations out of those Voltron allies. So like Command Team and Get Ready, so that you can utilize cards to stand them up and activate again. And then you want to keep them alive. So cards like First Aid, Innovation, Team Training are always going to be good to increase that health limit or heal them so that you don't have to lose an ally that you spent so much time building up. There are some allies that are better than others for their Voltron build. So you have like Ronin, Iron Man, and Vision are all excellent for the Avenger traits. Yondu and Cosmo are solid for Guardians. Cosmo is especially good if you have a deck that you know what that top card is going to be, so he can prevent all consequentials. So if you're running against Red Skull, you can always know that the Side Scheme deck is going to be a Side Scheme. You're running against the Affinity Gauntlet, you know that it's going to be an environment on top of that deck, so he can prevent all the consequential damage. I think my favorite is probably Cosmo just because of that gamified version of it, but Ronin and Iron Man are probably going to be your best one. Now, for hero selection for these, we really like to have heroes that can defend and therefore protect that Voltron ally. You're not going to be using the Voltron to block. You are going to be using your hero to defend or figure out a way to protect the ally. I like to use heroes that have that high defense and also get rewarded for defending. So Spider-Man is one of my top picks. He gets that 3 defense. He can very easily negate a lot of damage that does come at him from that villain activation. And also as a bonus, he gets Black Cat, who does not take consequential when attacking, making her also a really good Voltron target. So Spider-Man is one of the best Voltron heroes in my opinion. For the Guardian side, we're going to do Groot, who basically can take hits all day. Groot also has that 3 defense, so he can be defending. Then also he can remove his growth counters instead of taking damage, meaning that he can stay up longer, as well as We Are Groot. We Are Groot passes out tough status cards, which means that your Voltron ally can get another activation. So the tough status card will get knocked off with that consequential, but it is another activation that you can use. And then finally, my third hero that I love is Black Panther. And Black Panther is great because Shuri, his signature ally, can go grab upgrades, which typically you're using to grab those Black Panther upgrades, but she can be used to grab upgrades that can be placed on allies. And so you can use Shuri to go grab all the Voltron allies, or the Voltron upgrades that you need, and so you're not just waiting and hoping that you draw into them quickly. Shuri is another way to get those those upgrades into your hand. For our fourth archetype, we have the Sneak Attack build, which got a whole lot better recently with the Storm hero pack, but we'll get to that in a second. This one is getting those allies out cheaply to hit hard or trigger effects before they leave play. This kind of came to fruition with the card Sneak Attack, which is the namesake of the archetype. Sneak Attack is put an ally into play that shares the trait with you, and then at the end of the phase you discard that ally. So it doesn't stay out for long, but it can be very useful to get some triggers off. Then if you're lucky, you can also have a Save the Day or a Go Down Swinging to combo off that Sneak Attack. So while you are going to lose that ally no matter what, if you combine it with this Go Down Swinging and you Sneak Attack a really high cost ally, then you can deal a lot of damage. Now this can be tricky because you don't always and probably won't have these cards in your hand all at the same time. For that reason, I really like Black Panther, who when he enters play, you can go grab the piece that you need, whether that's a Go Down Swinging, or you can actually grab Sneak Attack with Black Panther if you pay for Black Panther, and then wait for the stars to line up so you can get a epic Sneak Attack, Go Down Swinging turn. Also, one quick note, cards like Honorary Guardian, Honorary Avenger, Warrior the Great Web, all of that good stuff allow you to use Sneak Attack and Alter Ego because Sneak Attack is not a hero action. And so because you gain that trait no matter what. Like Honorary Avenger, you now are an Avenger. No matter what side of the card you're on, you can sneak attack in Alter Ego at that point. And so that makes it a little bit more consistent and a little bit more fun to deck build for. Just to kind of mention some of my favorite targets for sneak attack, I really like Giant Man, Goliath, just to get some huge burst damage, Nick Fury, Captain Marvel, some of these allies that are very expensive and can have excellent when entering play abilities so that they can come in, hit hard, and then go away. Now that's the sneak attack side, and specifically the sneak attack card side, but to me this got really strong with the reprint or with the printing of To Me My X-Men in the Storm pack. This is a better version of sneak attack. It's search the top 5 cards of your deck and put an X-Men ally found that way into play. And then at the end of the phase, pull that card back to your hand. Now this is after you have drawn back up to your hand size, so you do get that card as an additional card in your hand, and it can trigger cards like Utopia, and it's so much better than sneak attack. It is so much stronger than sneak attack. And so whenever I'm playing this strategy, I'm typically leaning into the To Me My X-Men side of this strategy because it's so much better. You get the activation, or you get the when entering play, trigger Utopia or whatever, and then you get it back and you can play it again your next turn. So pretty much any X-Men hero works really well with this strategy, and the best one of them being Cyclops, right? Cyclops is king because he can have any X-Men from any aspect in his deck, meaning that the To Me My X-Men, if you flood your deck with X-Men, is always consistently going to be hitting, and you can get some really cool allies out onto the table very cheaply to let them hit pretty hard. Now I don't want to just name 3 X-Men, just know that all the other X-Men are going to be really strong with this strategy. So outside of that, I want to name like Nova. Nova's interesting because with sneak attack you put a card into play that shares a trait. Nova starts the game with Ariel if you go get his helmet, and so that opens up a lot of other heroes as well as the champion heroes that you can sneak attack. Now it's not the strongest, but it is kind of a fun way to think about it, or any other hero that starts with Ariel like a Spectrum or anything like that. Just know that I typically only think about sharing the trait as like X-Men or Avenger, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be Ariel, it could be Giant, there's just a lot of different traits that could combo off of this card that are more interesting than they are good in deck building, I think. But here we are. And then finally, my last one is War Machine. War Machine's really good because of his shield trait and then his ability to sneak attack Nick. Nick allows you to draw the cards, get that activation, deal damage, or whatever you choose to use Nick's ability for. Really, I don't like this strategy that much outside of X-Men. I think it can be kind of fun to try, but it's very hard to make it good, I think. And then finally, the last one, we probably have the most unique strategy out of these 5, or the unique archetype out of these 5, and that is what I'm calling Forget the Ally archetype. This is where you're using the leadership cards not to necessarily pump up your allies or play a lot of allies, but instead make your hero awesome. So cards like Morale Boost or Moxie and R&D Facility and dare I say like Symbiote Suit are great ways to bump up your stats. If your hero has a way to ready, they're probably loving this strategy. Throw that in with like a Earth's Mightiest Hero to really capitalize on multiple activations with a Moxie turn can be really fun. Then, if you're feeling crazy, you can use cards like Go All Out or Push Ahead to really deal some damage or remove some threat. So if you can line it up, this strategy has some incredibly powerful potential burst turns, and it's a very satisfying way to play. My favorite hero for this strategy, hands down, is Spider-Woman. So you can combo leadership with either like aggression or justice, and you run combat training or heroic intuition to get these numbers even higher. And then she gets +2 her stats anytime you play an aspect card, so she can get some incredible stats. She has readies in her kit with self-propelled glide. She's an Avenger, so she can run the Earth's Mightiest Heroes. And then you can go crazy with like a Go All Out. And I did the math one time what the maximum amount of damage Spider-Woman could do with a Go All Out, and I don't remember what it was, but it was enough to kill any stage of the villain really easily. Second hero I wanted to highlight here is Shadowcat. She's great because she can easily trigger Moxie because she's flipping into her phased or solid form very easily, which does trigger the response condition for Moxie. And then she has a ready with Shadowcat Surprise, so she can get multiple activations out of that And then she already has a really solid stat line. She can ignore the guard and patrol keywords, so she can always capitalize on where she needs to focus that attention. And then finally, the last hero that we're going to talk about, there's a reason that we're talking about her, because most of these cards came in her pack. Ironheart is awesome for this. So Ironheart naturally gets up to a 3/2/3 stat line once she's in version 3, meaning that Go All Out, which is easy to pay for now with her 6 hand size, deals 6 effective damage, right? So it's 8 damage minus 2 from the activation that you're losing for 2 resources. That's excellent economy right there. You can also combo it with your stat bumps just to get even more powerful utilizations out of those Go All Out turns. That's a fun strategy. Yeah, that's a really fun strategy. So there you go. Those are the 5 leadership archetypes that I wanted to talk about today. Which one is your favorite? Or are there any that I didn't talk about that you wanted to bring up? Let me know in the comments, because I'm curious to hear what you think. We did come up with a lot more that I didn't go over in the Justice video, and I'm hoping to do that again for the leadership video so that people can come and see and find more ways to play this awesome game. Again, if you enjoy this content, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the new stuff. And until next time, have some fun playing the blue aspect, and I'll see you around. Peace.